Every headline about generative AI in the design studio promises us one specific advantage: speed. The raw financial cost of generating a brand new visual concept has collapsed to near zero. Global automotive teams are now clocking designers producing dozens of distinct concept forms in a single 30-minute session. Looking at that output, the most obvious organizational move is to take that newfound speed and sprint straight through the concept phase. If you can ideate faster, you can ship faster. But the industry built a massive fire hose for generating options and completely forgot to build a filter to evaluate them. When the price of making an option vanishes, the real constraint in the design process becomes painfully obvious. The bottleneck is human judgment. This illustrates how large AI models process visual data. Trained on the aggregate of all existing imagery, their default output is always a mathematical average. The result is a phenomenon called average excellence. The outputs are highly polished, completely competent, and eerily generic. A generated form can look absolutely flawless, but still entirely miss the specific emotional nuance, the cultural read, and the exact personality that defines a specific brand. Bridging the gap between that generic perfection and true brand identity is not a rendering problem, it is a problem of taste. In this new economic landscape, taste is a scarce, highly tuned faculty. A designer spends a career building it through exposure, criticism, and thousands of small rejections. To see exactly how much financial weight that taste carries, let's look at a standard timeline graph of a physical product's lifecycle, plotting development time against committed cost. By the moment a design leaves the early concept phase, roughly 70 to 80% of the product's total cost is locked in. That massive upfront cost represents irreversible commitments to the product's physical geometry, foundational architecture, and raw materials. The concept phase is the highest leverage, most financially permanent window in the entire manufacturing pipeline. Swapping out a proportion or adjusting a curve early on might cost a few €100 of studio time. The flexibility is high, and the penalty for being wrong is low. This graph updates to show changes late in development. Once physical tooling begins, modifications carry an exponential penalty, costing up to 100 times more. Every downstream phase becomes a forced, constrained negotiation with a decision made too early. Upstream exploration is incredibly cheap. Downstream corrections are devastating. The real risk to a design studio is not moving too slowly. It is committing before you are absolutely certain. Which leaves modern design leaders with a strategic question. What exactly should you do with the time generative AI gives back to your team? The rational move is to pull in the opposite direction of the industry standard. The concept phase should not get shorter. It needs to get denser. Here is the ideal workflow. First, you utilize AI's zero-cost generation to ruthlessly expand your option set. You explore dozens of branches and pressure test wild variations. Then, you use human judgment to ruthlessly compress those infinite options down to a single, highly scrutinized choice. You reinvest every reclaimed minute back into the concept phase, so you can arrive at the expensive tooling gate with a decision that has survived vastly more scrutiny, not less. The modern designer is no longer defined as the hand that produces the render. They are the critical nerve that authors the direction and decides what is non-negotiable. Collapsing the cost of visualization shouldn't make the concept phase a formality you rush through. It makes it the richest, most deeply explored, and definitive moment in a product's life. Raw ideas and visual generations are entirely free. Knowing which specific idea is correct remains a premium, unautomatable skill. Because design decisions are cheap early on, but brutal once tooled, you must see every angle before committing to the build.